Back in the 1960s, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. suggested the primary goal of education ought to be to teach people to think deeply and with discernment. Now, can I suggest that observation or insight is as relevant today as ever before, perhaps even more relevant. I mean, we are operating in the age of fake news, of alternate facts. And I want to suggest that there are two things we need to pick up from that quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the two elements of guarding against gullibility. The first of these is the importance of deep learning, deep understanding. Now, we've got to be mindful that one of the great challenges in building deep learning in students or deep thought is that we've got a generation who are often lazy learners. I mean, the first thing that pops up on Wikipedia or the first things in a Google search, that's what you pay most attention to. And we need to push back on that and ask students questions that challenge the way they've arrived at opinions, the information they've found online. We also need to be mindful that deep learning can be hard for a generation who often get distracted very quickly. Our attention spans have become a whole lot shorter in recent years. And so deep learning may not come naturally because they can be lazy learners, because they're increasingly distracted. But the reality is there are some great benefits of having deep learning. Benefits that are critical if we're going to guard against gullibility and build those capacities for, I guess, critical thinking and being able to evaluate what we're reading or taking on board. The first benefit of deep learning is humility. It's amazing when you encounter someone who knows one subject really well, they've got a great depth of knowledge, there's a humility that goes with that. Because there's often this sense in which if I know this much about one topic, how many other topics are there out there that I don't know anything about comparatively? And yet the opposite is true. People who've got a superficial but wide knowledge often have an arrogance that goes with it. You know, the people who have an opinion about everything but actually don't know much about any one topic. And so there's a humility that comes with deep learning. That posture of humility is important because humility opens the mind, leaves us in an ability to take on ideas that are different to what we've always assumed. So humility is the first benefit of deep learning. The second is an appreciation for nuance. And the reality is, you know, the biggest challenge with even the best lies is they've always got a little bit of truth in them. And unless you've got a deep understanding of a topic or an area of knowledge, it's hard to figure out what's true and what's not and wade through those grey areas. The third benefit is transference. And it's interesting, one of the great researchers in deep learning, a guy named Kieran Egan, puts it well. He said that the benefit of having deep knowledge is that our understanding in one area somehow carries across to other areas of knowledge that are unrelated to the thing we know deeply. There's something about the skills of learning in depth that carry across to everything else we know or will learn. So there's great benefits to having deep learning, but it doesn't necessarily come naturally to us, and yet it's so important. The second element, going back to Martin Luther King's quote, that is critical if we're going to guard against gullibility is discernment. Now, what is discernment? Discernment is that ability to, discern what is true. And from the very outset, this is a challenge. The challenge is we've got a generation of students who've grown up in a postmodern era where, in a postmodern age, there's no such thing as the truth. Truth has become relative. Truth has become based in my personal experience or my perception rather than some external absolute that would be driven by facts and evidence and research. Now, the big thing we've got to be mindful of with students today is that they are approaching issues and deriving versions of what's true for them based on their perspective, their opinion, without realizing the unconscious biases that often go underneath or that underpin those assumptions. Some fantastic work over the recent years has been done by a group called the Centre for Media Literacy. Elizabeth Thoman from the Centre for Media Literacy offers a list of questions that are helpful if we're going to arm students with some of these skills of being able to, weigh up and judge whether content is valuable or not. Questions like, well, whenever you read something or come across a message, who created or paid for it? Getting students to ask questions like, why was this message created? Why was this article written? Why was this video posted online? What was the purpose behind it? Who is the message designed to reach? How does the message get my attention? That's an important question. How might different people from me understand this message differently? This starts to hint at some of its unconscious biases. And number 6, what values, lifestyles, and points of view are included or excluded in this message? And why might that be the case? Now, the beauty of questions like these, by arming students with these questions, we're going to teach them the skills of weighing up, of evaluating, of thinking critically, of everything that they come across online, but everything that they encounter in life more broadly. The importance of having not just discernment, but them being able to learn deeply and think deeply is critical if we're going to guard students against gullibility in an era of fake news.